Liberty in America is under assault. We no longer live in a reality that includes property rights. We're no longer the kings of our own castle. We no longer enjoy the true benefits of capitalism. Instead, we're negotiating our rights with our own government. This isn't how our country was founded. These aren't the ideas of our founders. It's time to seize back our country. This is the Liberty Hour, where these important issues will be discussed for the sake of America's future. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Constitution in the other, here's your host, Sean Thompson.
This is the Liberty Hour podcast. Now listen, ladies and gentlemen, I did Joe Walsh's show last night, spur of the moment. And the reason I don't have my cigar in my hand today is because I had to smoke it. I didn't have time to go back to the cigar store after the show. So I had to move appointments around last night to today. So this is not going to be a long podcast. So there will not be a lot of tomfoolery. If you care to participate, now's the time to call. 312-642-5600. Now, in the face of the 20 communists disguised as Democrats running for the nomination to run against Trump, I have openly said I will do something I did not do in 2016. I will vote for Trump regardless of the fraud Trumponomics that Stephen Moore writes books about. Propaganda pieces is what Trumponomics, books on Trumponomics are. Propaganda, lies, deceit, and what I think is truly an atrocity for an American president to take the kind of economic stance, the lie of Keynesianism, that he and it's not just him. Many others have done it. They've understood that through government spending, you fluff the numbers, you satisfy the morons, and they all cheer and everybody thinks you're popular. In the meantime, these kind of policies have led to the mix economic plan where America is so interwoven with socialism, our economics so bastardized through subsidies. We cheer this imbecile in Arizona who pulls back subsidies to Nike, multi-billion-dollar company, pulls back subsidies, somehow he's a patriot. And no one has the wherewithal to ask, what the hell are you doing subsidizing these companies anyway? Because you're luring them to your town and having the poor subsidize the rich. Because you're a liar and a fraud. Just like every politician has become over the last few years. But I want to litigate my case against Donald Trump. Now listen, don't freak out, all you people with your Caddyshack hats on. Okay, he's better than the communists, but not much. And I'll show you what I mean. It wasn't that long ago. Now, kid, I hope I got the right clip some. I'm not sure which one it is. But do you know which one? Is the tariff one? I want the one where he praises Vietnam. Is that the, can you got that one? That's D-Trump 1. So it's 10 seconds and 10 seconds, is it? Or is it in orange? Oh, all right. I still can't see it. Right.
And unemployment and all of the numbers that you would look at are at historically positive numbers. And so I...
All right, so I wanted to play it before I set it up. This is Trump in February. See, here's the thing. You've been lied to about the deficit. So much so that I have idiots repeating it to me without understanding there is no such thing as a trade deficit. Zero, none. Having a trade deficit is the equivalent of having a labor deficit with your landscaper. You're buying value. You, the citizen, the company, the businessman, whatever the case may be. See, here's the deal, people. We have rights. We have the right of our intellect. And if we see something as value, I get to decide what value is. The kid in there in the mauve shirt who paid a ridiculous sum for an ugly shirt, he thought it was value at the time he bought it. So to him, that's value. Ta-da, good for him. Bully for him. The other guy in the leotards doesn't get to say what he thinks is value. My clothes or his clothes, my car or his car, my business or his business. Do you follow the bouncing ball? This is about us, individuals making decisions to try to make our lives better, be it through consumption or through business. Third-party interpretation of said transaction is an opinion. The problem is when the government has that opinion, they can use law as a weapon against said citizen. That's what is happening here with this nonsense. Now, I want you to remember that his advisor, scumbag that he is, Lighthouser, was a lobbyist for the steel industry and aluminum. Do you understand that? He was paid. He's a slip and fall scumbag lawyer who couldn't get anywhere with Bob Dole and his pen. And he hung around Washington making tens of millions as a lawyer lobbyist for the steel industry, guaranteeing companies that paid him he would use his political influence to keep away the competition by buying politicians like Don Corleone. You understand? That's the reality of who Lighthouser is. Peter Navarro is an academic fraud, never made a nickel in the real world, and has a chip on his shoulder because he is a national populist Democrat. His whole life, Peter Navarro was a money-bundling, fundraising Democrat academic fraud. That's who are the advisors to Donald Trump. Now, what he did that's very smart, because he's a salesman. You want to sell this pig, put lipstick on it, you hire salesmen. And he hires 8-ball Larry Kudlow, who was a disgraced investment banker, disgraced, and then went to rehab, undisgraced himself, and became a political analyst for MSNBC or whatever hell station he was on. And then you took a guy like Stephen Moore, who I bought all his books. Stephen Moore with the dirty glasses and the dorky laugh, right? Who used to be a part of the Von Mises Institute and was a conservative think tank member. And you bought him. And you gave him just enough money, whatever it would take, to have him contradict their previous career. So that's who these two salesmen are. That's all they are. Western Avenue car salesmen. You want the undercoating, you want the wood shifter. And they'll go out for the right amount of money, and they'll eat a banana and shit a fruit salad every single time. So here's what Donald Trump had to say about Vietnam 3 months ago.
And unemployment and all of the numbers that you would look at are at historically positive numbers. And so I just see what you've done, and I'm very proud of what you've done. And I'm very proud to have left here last year. We had a great meeting. We had a meeting with a lot of the representatives. Some of them are right here that I recognize so well. And since that meeting, we've done a lot of trade.
Bullshit.
And I know today, whether it's Boeing and a couple of others, we're going to be signing some very big trade deals where you're buying a lot of different products from the United States, which we greatly appreciate. We're reducing the deficit very substantially.
There we go. No, you're not
as
either.
are many countries. But I very much appreciate the hospitality. It was a really something special. We got off Air Force One last night, and I drove down the boulevards, and I saw all of the buildings under construction and how Vietnam is thriving. And very importantly, we have a very big dinner tonight, as you know, and meetings with North Korea and Chairman Kim. And we both felt very good about having this very important summit in Vietnam, because you really are an example as to what can happen with good thinking. And on behalf of the United States, I want to thank you very much for hosting, and hopefully great things will happen later on with our meeting, but a lot of good things are happening before, and that's the signing of trade deals with the United States, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
And today, he hits him with a 400% steel tariff. 400% steel tariff on that country. Now, why? Why? After all the praise and all the pomp and circumstance, why? Because they were a threat to the American fraud steel system. Fraud that it is. That pays to eliminate competition so it can sell its steel at extremely high prices and pay off its union scum American communist workers. That's why. 400%. You should be outraged. Outraged. But you won't be, right? Because this is Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump, and he's a financial wizard. We could go through the past and show the skullduggery. Doesn't matter. You're just like Obama Democrats. The reality doesn't matter. At least if you're going to hold your nose and vote against the communists the way I am, at least recognize what the hell is going on here. I find it sickening to me that this goes without. I didn't hear one newscast. You heard about the military tanks for the 4th of July. I could have done a cheap show. I don't have a lot of time today. You want to hear about the military tanks like Russia? It's ridiculous. But that's okay, because 80% of America doesn't even understand that what the 4th of July is are farmers fighting the strongest military on the planet at the time. So how do we celebrate that in America? Oh, let's have a strong military. Morons. But that's okay. I got socialists celebrating the 4th of July parade. I got scumbag politicians who have used their political influence to open dope houses and video games. They're going to parade around with their wigs on. I understand the scam. But at least some of you know the difference, that we're being lied to and it's a con. And the same kind of skullduggery that goes into this nonsense where you abuse your power and you guarantee your contributors success, that's the same kind of bullshit this fat slob J.B. Pritzker pulls. Same kind of nonsense. In fact, you're puffing up the economic numbers through government cheese and government spending and subsidies and protectionism, just like J.B. Pritzker. So Trumponomics and Pritzkeronomics only have one thing difference. Pritzker's got the banking end of it, too.
This is the story of that Nike pullover or that Adidas tracksuit you might have bought for your kid or grandkids at Walmart or Costco. It's being sewn here today at a factory in Vietnam, just north of Hanoi. Workers stitch, package, and ship the product to the U.S. With President Trump threatening more tariffs against Chinese goods,
They took us for suckers.
American brands are asking, what else can we make in Vietnam?
Is to build an industrial zone.
Lin Wynn's company makes clothes for Columbia Sportswear and Abercrombie & Fitch.
Whatever China can do, Vietnam can do the same, at cheaper price.
Now, you know why you have to do this? I stopped the clip midway. You know why you have to do this? Because the American Union, communist scum that they are, have made it impossible to manufacture things at value. Now, they did that in conjunction with government that assures you can't operate unless you're a union shop. So the union has completely corrupted the government, who in turn abuses its power against the producer, the manufacturer, where you do not have the decision of, number one, what to pay your people. That's why we are arguing about this ridiculous minimum wage. And we've got the scum among us deciding it, rather than the people who actually are in charge of said warehouse, right? Because they're the robber barons. No, dummy. The robber baron is the government. The robber baron is the union. By the way, how did the union come about? How did they figure out how to extort the worker and extort the company and somehow produce nothing but fat-ass business agents who tool around in their Cadillacs? How did they figure it out? You don't mind that exists. They're not the bad guy. The guy trying to open the factory and deliver that sweatsuit to the Russian mobster, he's the bad guy, right? No. See, and the beauty of capitalism is it figured out. I can still figure it out. I can still go to another country, take advantage of the slippage in their currency, of the dollar value, the American dollar value, and find value and deliver it to some chump who wants it. Perfect. Everybody's happier. The guy who buys the product is happier. The manufacturer is happier. The workers that produce the product is happier. But the American Union can't take the competition. See, this is the foundation of protectionism. And you who chant for it, ironically, are the one who benefit the most from it. Free trade is the foundation of the revolution because the king tried to prevent it. When we go to a nonviolent war with so many countries, what's the first thing we do? We sanction them so they cannot have trade. We make them feast among themselves, so we limit their options, and we watch as they implode in bankruptcy. Do you think that somehow Lighthizer and Navarro can mitigate it so that the American doesn't go bankrupt? Because they're chanting for inflation because they love it, because it shrinks the debt they borrow. It's all a freaking magic show. And the American Republican is buying it hook, line, and sinker because they're browbeat of your other option only being a communist. But that doesn't mean you can't correct this. The idea that we sit idly by as a 400% penalty is thrown on imported goods from a pick-and-choose country. What happened? I thought that Vietnam was our friend 3 months ago. They were okay, right? It's a miracle what you did. You're a beacon of success. Look at how everything's going. Now it doesn't matter anymore, right?
The U.S. is importing 40% more from Vietnam than this time last year.
And that's the
while
problem.
Imports from China down 13%.
Wait, what did he say?
It affects your pocketbook. Retailers like Target, Best Buy, and others would likely charge you more to make up for a proposed 25% tariff on China. Shifting to Vietnam could be one solution if the factories here can find enough new workers and if the country's infrastructure can handle it. American companies trying to work around Trump's trade war so you can get the products you want without paying more.
And he's going to prevent it in each and every case because now it's Vietnam. Yesterday it was China. Tomorrow it'll be Cambodia. And it'll be anybody that threatens the American scam union in conjunction with the American government corruption. That's what Trump is protecting. That's why he's building up these protectionist walls. He's protecting the fraudulent lobbyist scumbag, who, by the way, is his advisor by the name of Lighthouser, who most of you don't even know or you don't even care. And you wrap yourselves in the flag, and we pretend that, look at how patriotic it is. Bring in the tanks for the 4th of July celebration. It's like living in Bizarro World, man. It's like living in Bizarro World, where you're chanting against yourself the same way the Democrat socialist chanted against himself when he rallied around Obamacare. It's the same scam, same government control, same step and fetch slave mentality of its supporter. Sickening. Absolutely sickening. And I have yet, this happened yesterday, by the way, 400% tariff on Vietnamese steel. Why? Do you just want a dictator? Tell the truth. So I said before, and it goes, I don't know, it goes without, it's not even a soundbite. Our choice is Keynesianism, centralized Keynesianism, or outright Marxism. This is how you drown in quicksand the whole time pretending you're playing volleyball. This is how it happens. I want the Republican hierarchy to understand that the Republican supporters reject this kind of manipulation and abuse of power. This is a manipulation and abuse of power. The president and his little cabal of corrupt scumbags, regardless of who it is, whether it's Obama, whether it's Bush, whether it's Clinton, or whether it's the wide-hip Trump, they do not have this power. They were not intended to have this power. And every once in a while, I'll get the dummy in the 1974 Ford F-150 tell me the country was built on tariffs. Listen, stupid. That's a half-truth at best. A half-truth at best. It was built on tariffs because that was the solution of the king. It was adopted at the time of the founding of the countries, but it was between states. Did you know that? It was between states. And it was wrong then. It was the North protectionism against the South labor. And that's a real big catalyst of something we call the Civil War. Now, I know we want to pretend that Abraham Lincoln wasn't a protectionist, wasn't extorting the South, wasn't putting up barriers of trade and manipulation the whole time, borrowing money, making the South liable for the debt. But those were components to what led to the Civil War. It really wasn't all about slavery. It was a component, but it was more of an economic component than anything else. God forbid we unmask Lincoln, which, by the way, is an excellent book written by DiLorenzo. Take a look at it in your own time. I don't have time to go over it today. I've got appointments because I've got to make real money, and I've got to tool around, and I got to head back to Florida. So I wanted to get that out today. I was going to call off the podcast because we did Joe Walsh's show. I did the podcast yesterday. But this is a crucially important topic that you're not going to see on Fox Business as Stuart Varney cheers for Keynesianism. Not just because he's a limey and doesn't get it, but because they are on the scam take too. Anybody who isn't offended by this profits from it. It's that simple. We're not supposed to be American unionized. We're not supposed to be protectionists. This isn't a country that touts government control. This is a country that touts individual control over his own life. And at each and every turn, I can't help but notice the Trump administration is just a little bit better than the Marxists. I mean, that's the best you can say about them. So how's that for the slogan? We're a little bit better than the communists. That's the real slogan of 2020. And until this gets corrected, I'm not going to accept this nonsense. And I will call it out at each and every turn. Whether it's the targeted credit manipulation of big business, Wall Street, and Goldman Sachs, scumbag financial pimps that they are. Or it's this kind of American protectionism that rises the cost to the common man while benefiting the scumbag lobbyist Lighthouser and his ilk. This isn't capitalism. This isn't even close. Now, it's not Trump's fault either. We haven't been capitalists for 70 years. But are you supposed to just adopt it, put ketchup on it, and eat it like you like it? I'm not going to do that. I don't think you should either. This is about the principles of standing for something. You understand? I laugh every time a Trump supporter argues against a Buttigieg minimum wage increase. It's the same bullshit. What do you just need it to be called minimum wage versus steel costs? If you're against minimum wage manipulation by a small few corrupted who are getting lobbied by unions, then you should be against this steel manipulation, price manipulation, and the oil price manipulation. How we're lapdogs and security guards for Saudi oil. You should be Look, I'm getting a call from this. I got to take these calls. Listen, I don't mean to wrap up the show early. It's a quick podcast, but that's why we did a podcast. Because unfortunately, I do not have Dan Proft money. I can't just devote my time to radio. There isn't that. I have actual other businesses. So listen, I apologize to you. We won't. I will be back on Tuesday. We will not be here on Wednesday. We will not be here next week, the following week after that. Sorry, but I also have decided as an Illinois citizen that I'm not going to be one anymore due to the kind of skullduggery that goes on in Illinois politics and the way in which all of our costs have been manipulated. I'm out of here. So this is an unfortunate thing. We do have the capability to do, what are they called, broadcasts, where I could be from Florida. Remote broadcasts. But I have the equipment. We're hopefully going to have that up and running before I make the complete move. In the meantime, it's just going to have to be like this. 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, until I can get everything organized. So I'm sorry about this, but hey, when you're hungry, half a sandwich is better than no sandwich. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Sorry, kid. I'm going to be late.